Hello, welcome to Wargamer. I'm your host, Rob, and today we're going to be doing a rundown on Gyrocopters. The narrative! So, the story for the Gyrocopters. They're obviously war machines, built by Darren. That's right, in their little workshops, hammering away. And they make these cute little one-man bombing machines. They also do gyro bombers as well, but currently we're talking about the Gyrocopters. A little bit sleeker, a little bit faster, and a little bit cooler. Now, they're normally built by that Ironworld Arsenal, who are Darren, who originally were in the realm of Azerheim. And then normally what happens is Stormcast take over a realm gate, and the Darren, they build up a little fortification in a city around it, build a little forge, and then they start building these QAF gyrocopters and gyrobombs. They also built cannons and other things as well. So that's effectively what they are. Their rotors are powered by steam, which is really interesting. So they have a steam engine, and they have a small rotor blade at the back, which again is kicking out steam to power it through. So no jet engines and no black powder devices. Real cool and real fancy. They've also got some little bombs. Now, in the Mortal Realms, they often are used during a battle to sweep across the enemy fields, drop bombs and steam gun into their enemy is the general tactic, which is cool because the rules work very much like that as well. They also are used to deliver messages between the different cities. So kind of what we once saw the Swift Hawk agents do. Long may they rest in peace, and then deliver their little notifications. Now, well, not notifications, stories, letters, scrolls, parchments. I imagine maybe burnt into some sort of wood, a message, but then that'll obviously annoy the Sylvaneth, so who knows. They're used to deliver messages around, but interestingly, they're not part of the Caradron Overlords, or there's no overlap, so they're definitely Darren piloted during the attack of Chaos on the Mortal Realms. Darren fled into higher peaks and eventually invented skyships and then effectively went and lived in the sky. This doesn't seem to be what's happened with Darren, or maybe the Gyrocopters are the initial kind of blueprint for what eventually became our ironclads and gun haulers. So that's a really cool kind of throwback, because they're very different races of Darren now with different cultures. So when you are flying these around, you are kind of rocking the old school version of a Caradron Overlord's boat. The model. So the model, let's look at this QAF little helicopter. As you can see, it's got the little rotor blades at the top, which are powered by steam, and it's got the little roto blade at the behind, which kind of propels it forward. The wings have got two little holes for their two tiny bombs, which are really sweet and really fun to put together. And then the gun at the front is detachable, and I think you would also be able to magnetize it, which is fun for the two different gun options. I'm going to say the steam gun's way better. And then it's got some small iconography as well with a little Darren inside. It's a pretty cool model, and it's really sweet. I think there are loads of opportunities to make this your own. You could obviously paint the squadrons in different markings, which I think would be fun, especially if they had you had a unit from Hallowheart, let's say, or an Ironworld Arsenal, a Greywater Fastness one. You could potentially do these whole colour schemes of squadrons or have them as markers, which is fun. Potential also to do a head swap on the Darren inside, so it could be piloted by someone else, but it is a very small model, so it wouldn't make sense for anything particularly big to move. I've also seen people attach legs to the bottom, which is obviously takes the flying part out of it and doesn't make much sense, or replace the roto blades with leaves, which I thought was really interesting. Either way, I think it's a really, really great model, and I'd love to see your conversions or ideas. So if you have got any, please post them to The Honest Wargamer at Twitter or Facebook. The rules! So onto the rules, and these guys are brilliant. They've got such great utility and multi-purpose utility as well. So let's look at their War Scroll first. They move 16 inches, which is definitely expandable. You have abilities to make them run and charge, or if you're just in Tempest Eye, if you're playing them in free cities, they're going to add plus 3 inches to their movement. So movement 19 is just bonkers. They've got 4 wounds each, and they have a 4-up save, which is really, really solid. Now, you can take them in squadrons of 1 to 3, so that would be 12 wounds with a 4-up save, and currently 180 points for that unit. I think that's quite cool. The Bravery 6, though, so if you do lose one, you potentially could be losing some more to Battle Shock test, so a little bit awkward there. Now, they've got two profiles, effectively, when it comes to shooting. They've got the brimstone gun and the steam gun. Now, I personally think the steam gun is way better because of what you're going to try and do with them. In effect, the way the brimstone gun works is you pick a unit that's within 8 inches, and then you roll a dice for every model in that unit that's within that 8-inch range. So if you have one gyrocopter who is, let's say, 3 inches away, just outside of charge range, then you would measure 8 inches, and every model inside of it, you would roll a dice for that many attacks. So if there are 20 models that were within range, you would roll 20 dice. You'd be hitting on 3s. There are ways to improve that to 2s, and you could also get reroll 1s available as well. Loads of options to do that. You could do a Hurricanum for the +1 to hit. There are command abilities for the +1 to hit. There are command traits for the +1 to hit, and the reroll ones can also again come from a command ability as well, which is the just generic ones you find inside the GHB. Then you can also roll. Then it's force to wound, rend 1, doing damage of 1. So that means you could potentially, so let's just break it down again. If you took your squadron of 3, which is why I think taking them in squadrons of 3 is really, really strong, because they all elect to shoot at the same time, which means your 3 gyrocopters, if they have the steam guns, can pick a unit and they all measure at the same time. That means that if you can get 30 models within range of each one of the gyrocopters, which isn't too hard, you would be 3 inches away from them because you're outside of charge range, which means you've only got 5 inches to measure beyond that range. But you could have, if you managed to get 30 inside for each gyrocopter, that'd be 90 dice hitting on 3s. If we just have it as our base profile, which means we obviously get 60 hits. Force to wound means we've got 30 wound dice, and it's rend of 1 and does 1 damage. So you could really clear out a horde for quite a cheap price. There aren't many units in the game that can clear a horde quite as well. But movement's going to be an issue, and also keeping them safe is going to be quite hard. Why they're really cool in a dual utility purpose is because they've also got guild bombs. That's correct. So once per battle, what you're able to do is if you move over a unit, you can elect to drop your guild bombs, and a gyrocopter rolls a dice, and a 2+ does D3 mortal wounds. Why that's really funky, in my opinion, is it gives them that lovely dual purpose of being able to go over a monster or a heavily armoured unit, do their 3d3 mortal wounds if you have a unit of 3, for instance, and then steam gun a horde. So they're doing 2 jobs at once, and they're doing it from really far away, which I think is really, really exciting. In combat, they're not much to laugh at, really. They're not much to talk about. They've got D3 attacks, hitting on 5s, wound on 4s, no rend, and they do 1 damage. But they're going to be great backfield clearers. And because of their movement and utility, you can just run them all the way up the board, potentially even run them over the enemy's front lines. Obviously, if you run them, you can't shoot, but then that's not true either. You all are also able to get run and shoot abilities again in Tempest Eye, so they're really, really good in there, which I think is really interesting. I would also play them as sitting behind my front line. So my units of Phoenix Guard, as an example, take in the front line damage, and then I fly my gyrocopters over the top, potentially bombing monsters on the way, and then using them to clear that space. That would be the way I would use them, and then later on, and you could even, for instance, if you're playing in Hallowheart, you can cast Warding Brand on them, so that once they try to clear a horde and then they get countercharged, let's say, they're going to do mortal wounds on a 4+ back. There's loads of combinations realistically, and sat in cover, 12 wounds with a 3-up save, they potentially could also hold an objective for you. Really, really good unit. I think it would be hard to argue not having 3 in your army because of what they can do. Some of the major threats that we currently see inside the game, for instance, Ghoul Kings on Terrorgeist and Keepers of Secrets, you can do the mortal wounds against them, and that's a really good choice and use for them. Clearing hordes, for instance, our Daughters of Cain units, our Witch Elf units, and Plague Monks, which cause us all issues, again, they do that job really well too. So there isn't really a reason not to take them. However, taking a big squadron of 12 or even more so could be really fun. And also taking little units of 1, so they're able to go and just block units up. But in that case, they do the same job that you would maybe use something like a squadron, a chariot, to do that as well. There's loads of combinations and things to think about, and obviously, please read our unit rundown on the Honest Wargamer website. The link is in the show notes. If you like this unit and you've been using it really well, we would love to hear from you, so please contact the Honest Wargamer on Twitter or on Facebook and let us know so we can talk about it in the future. And as always, have a great day.